Humans. I have been working on a book for at least 10 years. It's called Science Jesus. It is a critique of scientism. Scientism is the notion that science, to the exclusion of all other explanatory devices, gives us the best tool to understand the nature of reality. Spirituality, anything woo is outside the domain of science. And many of the greatest proponents of science, the most popular proponents of it, by and large, and I have spoken to many scientists and had lots of conversations, deep, extended conversations with them and a lot of atheists over the years. We've gotten to a point where we feel that science and that religion can be discarded. It's a out of date explanatory model for reality, science, and it needs to be replaced by rationality and science and evidence and data, right? As though everything that is meaningful to humans can be reduced to data. Where's the data on love? Where's the data on forgiveness? Where's the data on mercy, altruism? Where's the data on malice, hate, evil? Where's the data? Show it to me. Give me the microscope and let me examine them so I can prove that they exist. Come on. Einstein once said, everything that can be measured doesn't matter, and everything that matters can't be measured. So I think that science and its reductionist approach doesn't have a hope of giving us an explanation of the fullness of reality. It gives us a very, very narrowly constrained view of reality, a materialistic view of reality. And it's simply not sufficient. This is not all material. I think the larger point that I want to make is that science, its roots are in religion. Modern science would not exist as we know it without religion. And I think that religion, there are probably many more, but off the top of my head, there are probably three main contributions that religion made to the development of science. The first being monotheism. Monotheism was first proposed as a philosophical belief probably roughly 12 centuries ago by the, always struggle to pronounce the name, Zoroastrians. And prior to that, most cultures held a pantheistic, polytheistic, animalistic kind of way of thinking about the world that was much more capricious and chaotic and random. Monotheism suggested that there was a single creator who was rational, and by studying his creation, the creator's creation, the pronouns are irrelevant to me. By studying creation, we could develop a line of sight into the mind of the creator of this existence that we have. That was a huge foundational pillar for science. Because what it meant was, it was rational. It made sense. It fit together. Yeah? And when things fit together with intent and design, you can study something very small and extrapolate to something very large. Because there is consistency, as above, so below. Yeah? Scale works when you have a rational creator. Just like scale works when you are very rational and strategic as a business person. If it's random and capricious, it's really hard to set up systems, right? But when it's predictable and rational, you can set up systems that are based on that rationality, and they have a stability. They have a reliability as explanatory and organizational mechanisms. Okay? So monotheism gave science grounding. It would not have the same kind of grounding in a polytheistic world. Let me add here that while the earliest expression of monotheism is often attributed to the Zoroastrians, in fact, it was Judaism and Christianity that really distilled this notion and was the fundament, the hothouse in which science really took its strongest and deepest roots, and gave it the springboard for influence and effect that it enjoyed. Just wanted to add that point. Beyond that, foundational contribution to science with that very critical cornerstone assumption that there was a rational creator whose mind could be understood through study of the material world. Okay? The second major contribution was actually the patronage of scientists by the church. Copernicus, Galileo Galilei. Many scientists were supported in their work and their lives, their livelihoods were supported by the church. Beyond that, many of our greatest early scientists did this practice of science as a labor of love to pursue this understanding of the mind of the Creator. They were motivated by that, inspired by that. Newton, many early scientists were motivated by this aspirational drive to understand the mind of the Creator. So there was sustenance and support. Now, the relationship between the church and scientists is it's a mixed bag. All human behavior, all of human history is a mixed bag. Why should it be any different in this context? So yes, there was some head bumping. Yes, there were people who were deemed heretic and felt the sting of ostracism and worse. Okay, it's pretty par for the course for humans. We do that. We do that in science today. In the modern academic environment, there is the orthodoxy in almost every single academic specialty. And anyone who dares step outside of that orthodoxy, you better be prepared to have some rocks thrown at you. I can give you case after case after case. And I hear it, on a very regular basis when I study science and study the history of people who went against the grain. So the church's experience with science is no different than, our modern day experience with science. There's a price to be paid if you're a rock thrower who challenges the orthodoxy. So the church sustained science, paid people to do it. And then I think one of the biggest things that it did was it helped disseminate science by virtue of yet again another byproduct of religion that was then converted to the benefit of science, this time the Gutenberg press, the printing press. Gutenberg developed a press to print Bibles. It too was a bit of a sacred mission, to spread the word to all corners of the earth. And you were going to be better able to do that with higher consistency and faithfulness to the word by being very accurate, where instead of having monks sitting there and hand writing and hand illustrating every single Bible, now all you had to do is just feed sheets of blank paper into the printing press. Shadunk, 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 shadunk. And here come these perfect copies by the thousands, by the tens of thousands, by the millions that helped take the word and spread it around in ways that just were not possible before. You had a very, very small number of these handwritten Bibles, and they were held, among the intelligentsia and in a very select crowd of people who could read and who had access to these handwritten books, and they were very rare. But now with the book coming off the printing press, supply and demand, things became much cheaper, much easier to spread and disseminate the word. Same thing happened with science, the word of science. All of a sudden, consistency in the messaging, when you were having to dictate, copy a scientific treatise, for example, and if you wanted to make 100 copies, you'd have to have someone kind of doing that by hand. And there were lots of errors, lots of coding errors, transcription errors, which that's not a good thing when you're conducting science. But now, 100% accuracy. Shadunk, shadunk, shadunk. Same page every single time. Same book every single time. So the canon of scientific ideas became a thing that could now be distributed to all corners of the world. The word, the scientific word, was spread in large part by a mechanism or a byproduct of religion. And here we are now in the 21st century with science saying we don't, okay. First of all, you will not hear many scientists probably even agree with this formulation that I have. Many of them have never even considered it. They have been so conditioned to think of religion as primitive and irrational that the idea that it was foundational to this enterprise that we celebrate today, they don't even think of it. We're the antithesis of religion. Shocking to even think that it would have its roots in religion, right? So the child has now outgrown the parent, it thinks, and we can just discard religion. I think that's very dangerous. It has not proven itself to be a good idea. And in the fullness of time, as I believe we will ultimately find the promises of a materialistic world empty and unfulfilling to us as meaning-seeking creatures, meaning-making creatures, I believe we'll swing back. There will be a return, and I think we may be seeing some bits of it now, a return to awe, a return to maybe some epistemic humility that everything can't be explained through this extremely narrow aperture of science, this reductionistic, materialistic, explanatory model for all of this. It's not sufficient. Well, that's a bit of some of my thinking that is going into a chapter of Science Jesus. And we'll talk more. All right. What do you think? Does this make any sense? Science have its roots in religion? Is it the offspring of religion? And does it have some responsibility to acknowledge those roots and give serious pause to what it may be abandoning when it tries to discard this really certain, as sure as I'm sitting here, certain component of reality, the things that aren't seen. Peace.